my poor team leader had to endure me telling her that I've been sexually abused at age 13.
Right. Which is...
She went white. And she said, I'm sorry, I need to get some help here because this needs the police involved.
Hello and welcome back to the Talking Head podcast.
If you don't know who we are, every week we get new voices talking about a different subject around mental health.
This podcast may contain sensitive subjects and vocabulary that has been shown to provoke a reaction.
But know that all efforts have gone into making sure it's as helpful to everyone as possible.
As always, we appreciate all the love and support towards each and every episode.
Sharing does make people listen.
And listening sparks conversation.
Let's get talking.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
What have we got? Oh, I'll take one of these.
Oh. Your mum was eating those like mad.
Really?
She came out. Said, I could do with minutes. I said, right, well, I think we'll put that on your Christmas list.
Hello and welcome back to the Talking Head podcast. Welcome back if you're a previous listener, or welcome if you're new. Basically, this is a podcast about mental health awareness where we talk about different topics every single week. We get a different guest on every single week. And we talk, just maturely about different topics, and we're always open to suggestions. So if you've got any suggestions, just obviously let us know. We are constantly asking for any sort of feedback on our Instagram pages or our other platforms, and all that's available, or it should be available, in the description for whatever you're listening on. Just before I get into today's topic, I just want to thank you guys just for the lovely messages that I've been receiving recently. It's great to know that you're having a positive impact on anybody, really, and to just sort of feel like you're having an impact on people that you don't even know is really rewarding. It makes everything 10 times, better, just knowing that you're sort of having a positive impact. And just if you I just appreciate it. I really appreciate every single message I do receive, and I appreciate every single share, every single sort of word of mouth that gets spread about. So if you are passionate about more people listening and sort of mental health awareness, and every single share is appreciated. But getting into today's topic, this is going to be a bit of a weird one. So you might have noticed the audio is a bit different, or you might have noticed, you might not have noticed. But we actually are recording in my nan's conservatory. I'm joined by my nan right now.
Hello.
Hello. Do you mind me discussing your age, or?
No.
74?
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure I got that right.
Yes.
If not, it would have been
Yes.
awkward. Today's topic is loneliness and the elderly. So basically, this is a topic that I know is very close to your heart. Your sort of mental health journey is something that's very close to you, and it's something that you've kind of only opened up about kind of more recently. And very bravely coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. But basically, just before we get into today's topic, we're going to start it off like we do every single week. So what's lit up your week this week?
I think the thing that I'm looking back on and having enjoyed, I did have a ride out a whole morning with your dad.
Yeah.
In his convertible, classic convertible. It was sunny and it was a great morning with all the lovely villages and things. It was what I needed.
I should have mentioned, when we're recording this, we've just come pretty much out of a heat wave, and it's been mental. It's like living in Ibiza for a week.
Yeah, I know.
Unfortunately, I've been working, so it's not really been much of a holiday for me. But it's been all right. My best, what's lit up my week would be that I got 2 sets of good results in a week. So I passed my theory test for the first time, which I did the first time, so passed first time. I got my BTEC results for my level 3 diploma. Distinction, which is what I wanted, and basically is the highest I could have got. So pretty decent stuff, really. It wasn't that bad.
That's good.
It was a good week. So I haven't really gone celebrating yet though. So
No.
I'm kind of looking out for a time to do that. Although I think I'm going out Friday, so I might do it then. Going into today's topic, it's something that it's going to be a bit of a weird topic because a lot of the viewers and a lot of the demographics, because obviously I can see the statistics, are the younger generations. So talking about the older generations is probably something that's going to be quite different to what we usually discuss and what we usually do. But part of what I want to do on this podcast is kind of be universal and talk about everything. Like, it's not all about, certain things, because mental health is universal. It isn't just restricted to one sort of thing. There's so many different types of mental health. That's why I started a podcast, is there is so much to talk about it, and we're not going to get bored easily. Do you know what I mean? There's not. No. You're not going to run out of content.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And you're always going to have something to talk about. There's always, new stuff to talk about. So, that's part of the reason why I started it. But, loneliness in the elderly is sort of a wide topic. So you could sort of think that's a bit broad and but we're going to go into certain specifics. We might not get it all covered in one podcast, but we'll try and do what we can. But just before we start, Nan, I would like to get your opinion on mental health awareness in its current state and how much you've seen it improve. Because obviously, even in the last few years, in the last decade or so, it's improved so much.
I think that the only sort of treatment that you had, mental health treatment, was people who were quite severely ill with a mental health issue. And much as I hate to think of this, but people were taken into places to get them better, and they weren't the best places to be.
And they probably weren't doing the right, practices.
No.
They weren't getting the treatment that they needed.
I think that came home to me when, because my mum had vascular dementia and was sectioned.
Right.
And she was taken into a mental health unit. It was upstairs. You couldn't even see the garden. And my mum was a very outdoor person who loved a garden. How must that have made her feel? I just think that's just awful, really. I don't think that improved her health, mental health.
I mean, you can sort of relate that to what we've just been through.
I think so. And I mean, the thing is that I don't know whether if you'd have been if I'd have been someone who had my partner with me still, which unfortunately I didn't have, then I wouldn't have been lonely for a start. But because I didn't, and I was already learning to cope with being on my own, you suddenly find that you've got. Well, it's difficult to explain this. You suddenly find you've got 4.5 months. I didn't fortunately know that at the beginning of it, of being absolutely isolated.
Yeah. And
that's the word, isolation.
Yeah. So you're saying, obviously we're going away from that. I want to. Well, let's talk about what we've just been through. Why don't we?
Yeah.
So it's what's most relevant right now. We might as well just jump into it.
I'm sorry. So, do you want me to go back?
No. Well, let's go there because I think it's a good place to start, even though it's right where we've just been.
Yeah.
So, you were saying that you probably would have had a better time if you were with your partner.
Yes.
And your partner was still here. Why do you think that? And I know it might seem obvious, but you're still going to be quite, even though you have somebody, you're still not going to see everybody else. Do you know what I mean?
No, but I think that one of the worst things in the 4.5 months of my isolation was lack of human contact.
Mm.
And I mean, once I got to the 6th of July and I could form a support bubble and you could have a hug and things like that. But it isn't just that. If I'd have had somebody else in the house, I'd have had somebody else that you can touch.
Mm.
And that's what was lacking.
Yeah.
I think I've got to be truthful, and I do worry about the people who haven't been lucky enough. Like I've got a big garden, so I could spend time in my garden as well as in the house. But what happens if you live in a flat?
That's what I was thinking. Because then
If
you
live
really
in a
are.
flat,
Yeah, you really are alone then, aren't
yeah,
you?
you are.
Can't even go
and you might be
into your back
upstairs,
garden.
you know,
Yeah.
and you can't go shopping.
No.
I mean, you can get somebody who brings you shopping and leaves it outside your flat door.
That's the most amount of human contact you're going to get, though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's not human contact, is it? It's like somebody bringing an Amazon parcel and just leaving it outside the door, isn't it?
Mm.
So that's, and I worry about those sort of people, and I think that's going forward. I think that there's going to be an issue in the next few months of people who have been on their own, and there might not be older people, because there's a lot of people with health issues that didn't allow them to mix, who were vulnerable. Those people might not be older, they might be younger, the younger end.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, when we're talking about it being universal, it really has. I think lockdown's made it a lot harder for everybody. And I feel like because of the term isolation, you've been isolated with your own thoughts.
Yes.
So you've really kind of had to come into contact with your own sort of issues. You might have tucked away for a long time, sort of now coming back to light, and you've got to kind of deal with it because you haven't got anything to distract you from it.
No.
If you're just alone by yourself, you haven't got much distraction from that. I can sort of relate to that. Like, obviously in lockdown, I didn't have the best time, but I came into contact, more than ever with my own sort of issues. I was kind of forced to address them, which was useful in a way, but in a way it was, obviously it was difficult. People say, and I was thinking today, the struggle. People say struggling is fine. Yeah, it's fine to struggle, but it's also the struggle is hard. Do you know what I mean? Like, people will say to you, "Oh, it's okay, you can struggle. Like, that's normal," but like, it's also very difficult. Do you know what I mean? If you know what I mean. So it's like struggling is part of life, but saying that to someone doesn't make it easier.
Struggling isn't great.
No,
it isn't the answer to anything.
No,
is it?
The thing is with what we say on the podcast, I feel constantly like what I have to say is the right thing, because people can take certain things and disagree with your views very easily, because mental health, like it or not, is a touchy subject.
Yeah.
So I always feel kind of sort of on edge to kind of say the right thing, but I know what I'm saying is sort of my opinion, and when people do put positive comments and stuff like that, it sort of encourages me that I am sort of saying the right stuff. And I know that some of my views might not be, what's the right thing to say, but what is the right thing to say when you talk about mental health? Because nobody really can say that, because everybody's mental health is different. So someone might say to somebody else might help.
I think, well, I might be wrong here, but I think that they've got to put a lot more effort into coping with people's mental health issues now after lockdown.
Yeah, I feel, and this is the thing with the government, they tend to put them, like, they'll say they'll do something, but they'll do it like a year or like even, like, the masks.
Yes.
They were saying they were saying they could have just done it like that.
Yeah.
But instead they waited like a week.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the thing. Why don't they just start things now? I don't know. But I think mental health is something that needs obviously more funding, and that's related to our first question. Let's go into your journey.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about the first sort of mental health issues that you acknowledged in your own head, and let's just go through it and up till now. Let's just start right from the beginning.
Can I actually go back to OCD, which was the last podcast? when I listened to that, I had no concept at all that what I'd been suffering from since I'd been really quite young. I mean, quite young. The things that I was doing, I didn't know that it was something called OCD.
So before you even watched that podcast?
Oh, I now know that what I was doing at, say, 6 and 7 years old was actually OCD.
Right, that's mad.
It
That's
is
crazy
mad,
because, you know.
because I did things like.
Did you not have an inkling of doubt then?
No, I thought everybody did it.
Right. It is a common issue, but yeah, it's.
I mean, I suppose I realised that, you know, going to bed and turning the pillow twice and banging the pillow on the back of the bed and all these things, you could think that that's just habit. That's probably how I thought of it, as habit. But the other thing about that was that I convinced myself that if I didn't do that, somebody in my family would die.
And that's exactly what was being said in the last podcast.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what hit home because I thought, yes, I at 6 and 7 years old, I was thinking somebody will die if I don't do this every single night. And I did this every single night until my husband died, basically. Right. By which time I wasn't going to help anything, was it?
No, that's interesting. So I've got 2 points to make out of that. So the first one is obviously you stopped doing it when your husband died. Sort of that you realise, I think, when something terrible happens, you realise that doing this silly stuff doesn't help.
No.
It doesn't actually do anything, unfortunately.
No. If
it did, then everybody would be doing it. But
yeah, and it's things like, you know, walking down the road. Somebody actually, it was, I think, Jess in the last one, who said that she had to walk down the road in a particular way.
Yeah.
I can't relate to walking in a particular way, but I had to walk on exactly the same part of the pavement.
Right.
And I can't explain that.
Yeah.
I can't explain.
But was that because of the certain consequences? So if you didn't, then
something would happen.
Yeah.
It would happen to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So relating to the consequence, which is the other point I wanted to make.
Yes.
Is at 6 or 7 you're having this idea that if you didn't do something terrible was going to happen.
Yes.
At 6 or 7, that's quite a dark thing to think about, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you know was there anything that could have provoked that idea, that dark thought?
Yes, I think there was. I had a nightmare that my dad lost his arm.
Right.
It isn't the same as dying, is it?
No.
But actually that had come into my head literally because I knew somebody that it had happened to a few weeks before.
Right. Yeah.
So it was associating with that. And I think they had quite a few nights when they couldn't get me. I was suffering from nightmares.
I had sort of a similar thing, where I'd heard about somebody that passed away in the sleep, and that terrified me as a kid. That terrified me. Like that is. Do you just? A lot of people think that's like the most peaceful way to go and whatever, but. When I was growing up, I was like, I'm not ready for that yet. Like I don't need that, and that was terrifying to me. You could fall asleep.
Was that an older person or a younger person?
Middle-aged.
Oh right.
And it just terrified me, just the idea of that, and so that kind of that terrible thought kind of spiraled in my head. So yeah, we've talked about OCD. Let's go a bit more into your other issues that you've dealt with. So we've gone from 6 and 7. Where do we go from there?
I continued all of these things, the walking in the same part of the pavement, the tapping of the pillow, and it developed then into something a lot more that a lot more obvious to other people, in as much as everything had to be tidy. So if I had papers on a table, they had to be tidy. They had to be, they couldn't be just left any old how. And of course, as I was working, then my desk was the only desk in the whole place that was tidy. And people commented on it.
Yeah.
Why do you always do that? I can't help that. I just did.
It's frustrating when people comment on it, isn't it?
Yes. And I mean, one of the jobs I did was doing stop checks. Checks from a checkbook that had been stopped, but somebody's found it in a drawer. They found it now in the drawer and started using it, but it's on a stopped checkbook.
Yeah.
So it would refer to my team, and so these came, and they came with paper clips attached with all with all the checks. And the first thing I had to do was to dismantle all the thing and put them so that all of the checks were in a neat, so that nothing was sticking out. And people used to watch me. And they didn't make any comment at all, but you could tell they were thinking, oh, crikey, she's at it again. But they didn't know. I don't think it was OCD.
No.
But I think it was.
Yeah, I think that probably was. Yeah.
So, but then there was no consequence to that if I didn't have a tidy desk, or my pens weren't all straight, and my filing cabinet wasn't straight. But one of the jobs I got given was archiving. I particularly did that in the last 2 years of my working life. That went away from the building into archive, but you had to have a record of what was contained in the boxes and where they'd gone to, so that if the police needed them, you could retrieve them.
Yeah.
And that was the very, very best job I could have ever had, because it enabled me to be so super organised, but nobody thought anything strange about that. So sometimes, it does come right, you see. It's not always bad.
So, kind of going from that, so that's something, OCD has probably played your life. Do you do it anymore?
I've stopped the tapping of the...
Anything else? Do you do anything else now?
I still keep my desk tidy.
Yeah.
As you'll know if you go in my study,
Yeah.
It's my desk tidy.
But you didn't like it when I was younger and messing it all around?
No, I didn't at all. And it's like, it's but you have to accept it, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So you mentioned, obviously, to me, before the podcast, there was a certain thing that you didn't open up to you when you were 50. Around 50?
It was soon after I lost my mum.
Right.
I was fine. She'd had dementia, and it was a release really, because she had been like that and didn't know me for all that good 2 years. And it was a release, and I thought that, I can get on now with grieving for her.
Mm-hmm.
And it got from the March up to October of that year, and I went to work as normal, drove to work, started doing my work, and it was like somebody hit me on the back of the neck and felled me, and I couldn't, and I mean, obviously I lost all my colour, so people panicked and I think you need to get some help here, because they thought that I suppose I was having a heart attack or something, but actually it wasn't. And when they took me away to a room, my poor team leader had to endure me telling her that I'd been sexually abused at age 13.
Right. Which is...
She went white. And she said, sorry, I need to get some help here because this needs the police involved.
So, okay, so this is you say poor. Obviously, this is something. So this came out like it just came out. So do you reckon the reason why you collapsed or whatever was just this flood of memory?
Yes, yeah,
Right.
I do.
All of a sudden,
Yeah,
which you'd packed away for a long time.
yeah, and I think Mum dying was like was the tip of the iceberg, and it just went, and it was like a thing cracking.
Yeah,
that's the best description I could give of it, really. I mean, I now can tell people about it, but I'd gone from age 13 to my late 50s, and not told anybody. The only people who knew about it were the people who were involved and made the decision in the beginning not to go to court.
Right.
That was totally the wrong decision. I look at it now, it's totally the wrong decision. And that man should have been gone to court and he should have been in prison.
Do you want to go into detail about what happened, or?
Well, do you want me to?
I don't mind. Yeah, you can go ahead.
This was a person. My dad died quite suddenly,
okay.
And he was a local councillor.
I should just mention just before we do, I don't really know any of all this. So what you're telling me is for the first time.
Right. But that
so that people know
matter.
that.
Sorry,
No, it's fine.
He, as I say, and because obviously they had to have an election, and people came to the house to collect paperwork and things. I presume so that they'd got some information so that they could put themselves forward as a candidate. That's the thing. And this particular man made himself very, very friendly to my mum, who was not coping very well anyway. But she didn't really ever realise that, and I didn't because I was too young. But she had no concept of what this guy was doing. I now know it was grooming. In a way, that's what it was. And he convinced her that it was absolutely fine for him to take me to a youth club in his car.
Right.
But he didn't take me to youth club.
No.
He took me to the crematorium where my dad had been cremated.
Jeez, right.
That's gross.
Yeah, that is. And this was 13?
Yes.
That's.
But although it went to the police decision was that it would not be in my best interest to go to her in a court.
So what was the reasoning behind that?
Because they thought it would upset me too much. I mean, the bottom line of this is that nowadays you wouldn't need to be face to face with the person, would you?
No.
But I don't know. He just.
So he got away with it.
He got away with it, and not only that, he stalked me for a good year afterwards. I could not shake this man off.
So, let's talk about going to the police. So, was it you that went to the police? Was it your mother?
No, it was my family.
Right. Okay.
My grandparents.
So, who did you tell your grandparents?
Yes.
Is that who you told first?
I told my mum and my aunt, my aunts, and they told their parents.
Right. Okay. So, how long did it take for you to say that to them? Because you said it took a long time to kind of admit to it.
I came home. The thing was, he dropped. Because of what had happened to me. The description probably is that you've got the gift of the gab, and I could talk for England probably even as a child. I could. And I talked my way out of this situation. And I said to him, if I get out of the car now, this is in the middle of nowhere because the crematorium was in the middle of nowhere. It was down a country road in the dark. And if you let me out of the car, I'll promise you faithfully, I'll not tell anybody what you've just done. And he said, no, I can't do that. I can't let you do that. And my first thought was, he's going to kill me. Because that was the only thing as a child. You watch all these television programs and you're convinced that the answer is he's going to kill me. And that's what I thought is going to happen. He's going to kill me. But I carried on talking and persuading and cajoling. And he eventually drove me to the place where the manse where the youth club was, church youth club, and he dropped me outside. I went into that youth club where there was my own minister there and his wife, who I babysat for, so I knew them really well. And I sat through the whole of that hour and a half and didn't tell a soul. And inside I was like in bits.
You're ready to burst.
Yeah, and after that I went and caught a bus to go home. And it was the minute that I got into the house that it just emptied out, and I just said what had happened. And of course Mum was in pieces and she had to have help, and it's just, but unfortunately, I think for me, and I think for the police as well, that the main person who was on this guy's side happened to be somebody who became Deputy Prime Minister.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you want to name and shame?
I don't think I can do that because it's just not fair on this, is it?
That's fair enough.
I mean, I would like to go to the Derbyshire Police and see if this is recorded. It'll be in archive now, but I think it'll have been recorded. And actually, your brother once wanted me to do that because he said whether he's alive or dead, this guy, he needs to be shamed to what he's done. My biggest fear was that he'd done it to somebody else and killed them. So I've lived the rest of my life worrying about whether he's done something to somebody else and killed them.
However, not, God forbid, you were kind of responsible for that, but not going to
yes,
the police.
And that's another thing, isn't it? It's cause and effect.
So has that played on your mind for...
Oh yeah, well it did, but all these things were at the back of my mind. I did tell your granddad. I had to because
when did you tell him? Sorry.
Sorry.
When did you tell him?
I told him when I was going out with him. Because
So
I felt it was only fair, because if this reacted on me at some stage, I didn't want him to suffer as a result of it.
So was he the only person that you'd
Yes, and
spoken to apart from your family?
wouldn't let me go. He didn't want me to go to Derbyshire Police and settle the score. No. He said it would upset me too much and it would affect my health.
Looking back at that now, do you agree with that decision?
I don't agree with it, no.
I can see
it's what he thought was the right thing. But then, it's like now my cousins who were kind of around at the time knew something was going on but didn't know what, since they've found out what. And actually my aunt had told her eldest daughter that what had happened. She actually told her not long before she died, and she said, I made the most horrendous decision. I should never have let them, persuade me that this was the best option. So she was convinced that I needed to have help, and it needed to go further. So all of these things, they've gone on a very long time, and you just, I think I've tried to get on with my life, and I think the fact that I had a very supportive husband who supported me through thick and thin, I think to be honest, that's the way I've got through my life. Because I could quite easily have gone on to taking drugs or anything, couldn't I? You'd be honest, I could have done.
Yeah. It's weird, like, obviously, so you've made these decisions to kind of push back, acknowledging all these things and sort of coming to terms with them. But so you've distracted yourself through other people supporting you. And obviously, when Grandpa did die, it's like that support was gone.
Yes.
And a lot of people talk about that, like, obviously your main support's gone. It's like the house is crashing down on you. That's what it feels like. But for you, it wasn't just that. It was also kind of I don't want to say distraction, but it helped you. He supported you through thick and thin, and that support was then gone. So then everything came back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So everything that had kind of been sort of in the shadows because of him was now back in the light again.
Yeah.
So how was that?
We've been a couple for 55 years. That's a very long time, and I was only 14 when I started going out with him, and that was only a year.
I was going to say that's only so. How
it was a
your
year
perception
after this happened.
I mean, obviously, maybe didn't have the best idea of what a man should be or what could be. But like, did that trouble you going into that relationship?
No.
Were you scared or anything like that?
No.
I don't think you would be with Grandpa.
I think if I'd have met the wrong person,
yeah,
I could have ended up not with having a good life at all. I know that. Yeah.
But talking about, obviously that support going.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was hard. It's hard at the beginning when you lose somebody because you've got a lot of things to do, but then all those things finish, and then you're basically on your own in the house. But at least it wasn't in lockdown, so I was able to,
See everybody.
Yeah.
So you were talking about that support barrier going.
Yes, because that was somebody that I'd relied on because he was older than me anyway, and it was just something that you kind of think they're going to be there forever.
Yeah.
And they're not. That's the thing. But as I say, that wasn't too bad because I was able to see other people. It's not like in lockdown, and then suddenly in lockdown, not only, I've got know a lot of people who live on their own, but they weren't like I was, where you're shielded and you couldn't go out of the drive. I couldn't go out of the drive for 2 months. And people don't understand that. I think people who were a couple, if you like, or somebody who was living on their own maybe and could go to the shops. It's not the same as being on your own, isolated.
Do you reckon lockdown's made you stronger or weaker?
I'd like to think it's made me stronger, but time will tell. Who's to say that?
Still quite early doors, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, the thing is, when I look back, I think I've just had a kind of a normal life. But having just discussed all this, I've realised I haven't really.
But what do you call a normal life?
I don't know. I thought I had a normal life, but I'm now beginning to think, having discussed that with you, things haven't been normal.
Yeah.
In as much as I obviously had OCD and probably I've still got it now, to a mild degree compared with some people. No, and there's also things that are no longer tucked into the back of my head. Fortunately, that I had told somebody, and I now can talk to my friends about it because they all know about it. But the bottom line of this is that you could it's hard to explain this, but you could I don't know. I can't explain what I mean really.
I don't know what you mean. I know what you mean. It's talking about having a normal life. It's like you can't really define normal when it comes to someone's life.
And I fear now that if I hadn't had that breakdown at work that day, then and told anybody, what happens if I'd have got to lockdown and nobody had known?
Yeah.
And I've no longer got the support of the person who did know. So how would I have coped with that? I think mentally I would have struggled.
We're talking about, the support. It's interesting. So I didn't really know, but I mean, obviously Grandpa seemed like a really good sort of support for you. Did it work both ways? Did he have any issues himself?
Well, he had a lot of health issues, which obviously he needed.
Yeah.
He needed. I mean, obviously, in the last couple of years, I was his full-time carer. So So I suppose it worked both ways. But we promised to look after each other through thick and thin, through illness, everything. So, and that's what we did.
You say full-time carer, so did that take a toll on you?
Well, obviously, it did because of the illnesses I have. But what happened, because I was having to have blood tests very regularly, what happened after he died was that suddenly my bloods improved. And I couldn't understand that because I was in probably one of the darkest places I've been in. But my specialists, both of them, said, well, you know why this is, Mary? Because you're not looking after somebody else. Your body is only coping with looking after itself. And one of them said to me, you don't want to hear that. I know you don't want to hear that, but it's true.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so it was difficult. It was a difficult time, to be honest. It was difficult, really. But and then we go into lockdown.
Let's talk about grieving, because you probably had a lot more experience than me. Before Grandpa, I only had I had totes.
Yes.
And that's all I had.
Yeah.
That's the only sort of experience, and to give a bit of context, that's a dog.
Yeah. It doesn't matter, it's part of the family.
No, exactly, yeah. He'd been around for all my life.
Yes.
So it was still quite and it was weird for me because I remember I'd never really experienced anything like that. I had even when I was young, I don't know how old I was. I want to say about 10. I think 10 is probably a bit, maybe like 8, 9, 10, something like that. But the weird thing was, so it's not your side, the other side, grandparents.
Yeah.
And I was round there, around theirs for the week or whatever. whilst the dog died. So it was a very weird thing. It was like, and it was sort of like that week we could sort of tell something was up. And yeah, I remember. I don't want to go into details because I don't, they'll be listening, so I don't want to go too into details. But it was a very weird experience for me because I'd never experienced any sort of loss, and it didn't necessarily break me, but I was upset. I think when I was too young to kind of sort of really understand it all and stuff like that. I think I was more upset because other people were upset.
Yeah.
And then obviously, 2018, Grandpa, passes away, and it was that was the first thing that like ever hit me.
But you had spent a lot of time with him anyway, from being a baby.
Oh yeah.
And you were very,
100%,
very close.
very, very close. And obviously, I spent a lot of time with him when I was younger. Not as much time when I was older.
No.
But I mean, I was doing GCSEs when, and that's sort of something I kind of still feel sad about. I never got to see the kind of you reap the rewards of all this time that I spent.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah. But it was weird. I was literally in the middle of it, but I can remember every single moment about that.
I'm not surprised really, because it's when my dad died when I was 13. To be honest, I didn't think he was going to die.
I didn't think that about Grandpa.
No.
I think it's something about someone being in your life, the entire time. You think you can't imagine the life without them.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
No.
Because you think that's so foreign.
I knew he had a heart problem, my dad. But in those days, nowadays, he would have had a heart bypass and he'd have been fine. But the bottom line was, in those days, they didn't know how to treat heart problems. And consequently, I just did not know he was going to die. I had got no concept that he was going to die, because as far as I knew, I thought he was going to go back to work. He was going back to work, on the following week, and he died on the Friday. And you just think, how can that happen? But yeah, that was hard. That was really hard. When you're close to somebody, to lose them when you're not expecting it. And my mum didn't cope with the loss at all. She just had a mental breakdown. So I suddenly had to grow up. And that was that good for me or not, I don't know. I suddenly, when I should have been still a child, I was suddenly thrown into adulthood. And running the house and things.
Yeah.
So that's really what it was like.
Yeah. So I don't know with you, we could talk about just in general, so all the losses that you have experienced. So I can only really relate to one really, but have they hit you straight away? Because I want to say something just before we do. So I remember the night where Grandpa had died. It was a Friday.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was at a drama society thing, and coming back, and Dad and brother had just gone and seen him. He was doing fine. And, all of a sudden it all, goes wrong. You seemed like it hit you quite hard. Well, obviously it hit you hard, but it hit you hard very quickly.
Yeah.
You could tell, like, for me, there was sort of a doubt in my head that it was real. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it hit me. I was all very, very, very upset, but, like, at the same time, it was like, I still can't believe it's real. Do you know what I mean? But it seemed like it was very real for you.
That was, yeah, it was because I had seen him only an hour before that.
I hadn't seen him.
And I mean, we'd been watching the football on on Daniel's phone that it got saved for him to watch it. So they were doing that. So he was absolutely fine. He was talking about us going the following day. So yeah, I was a shock.
It was weird. It was very
It
strange.
was a shock. Although I knew he was ill, don't get me wrong, I
No.
knew he was poorly, but I didn't realise that I was going to lose him like that.
Could you see, you're saying about leaving the next day, could you see that happening when you were there? You're thinking tomorrow going?
No,
You
no,
couldn't
because
see?
I kissed him and said, I'll see you at 12 tomorrow.
Right. Which is mad. Is that the last thing?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, and the last thing he said to me was, I'll see you at 12 tomorrow. You won't be late, will you?
Won't be late.
He hated being in hospital because their visiting started at 12.
Ah, right.
And he
so-
liked somebody to be there.
I think you are. I mean, similar to what you've been describing, isolation.
Yes,
Right.
he hated it.
It's not nice.
He
is it?
hated it.
I think it's
Yeah.
nice for anybody. I don't think really anybody really enjoys
No.
it.
But he never has to come home. Funny that, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, don't know. I look back of all these things. They've all gone around in my head, and I'm thinking, why didn't he ask to come home? I don't know. I think for the first time in our lives together, I don't know what he was thinking.
Just strange, isn't it?
Yes, I've got to confess that. I don't know what he was thinking in those last few days of his life.
So it's weird because I remember, I don't know who it was who told me, but he was like, someone mentioned to me that at some point he was like, I'm ready to go now. And that's what he's apparently said. Or said he was something. So I heard it. So I don't know who said that to me. He was like, yeah, I'm ready, or like, at least he's not suffering. And it would be easier if he was just gone.
Yeah.
I don't know who told me that, but someone did.
Well, it wasn't me. I don't know. I've no idea. I don't know.
I'm just glad he's not suffering anymore.
Sorry?
I'm just glad he's not suffering anymore.
Yes, because it was getting worse.
Yeah, and I can't imagine
No.
what it's like, but, to get to the point where you're like, if he said it or not, I don't know if he did, but it's sad even if anybody gets to the point where, it would be easier for them to be gone. It's sad.
I mean, I have heard other people who've said that they're kind of, they're ill and they've been waiting for something to happen, and that thing happens, happy thing happens, and they've just said, I'm happy now, closed their eyes and never woke up.
Really?
Yeah.
So they're the kind of...
And I actually know two people that happened to it. I was actually there. So sometimes it is, I don't know. But as I say, unfortunately, I don't know what was happening with his thoughts at all. I've no idea at all what was happening. So, and I think for the first time in his life, he didn't tell me. Perhaps he didn't tell me because he knew that I wouldn't cope with it very well. But I think really what he was wanting to say was, I've had enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's been through a lot, hasn't he? So...
Yeah, he had been through a lot. And I think that's it. And I think that's probably where you've got that from. It's probably got twisted a bit.
Maybe.
In translation. But I think he'd had enough. But he was never going to tell me that. He was never going to say, right, I've had enough now. And because I think he
He's
knew
not
I
like
could,
that.
I knew I wouldn't cope.
Which is why I had the doubt where when I heard it on, I've for some reason in my head that happened.
Yeah. I
was doubtful about it because I thought it's not really like him.
No. Well, he certainly didn't say it to me, and I don't know. I was convinced that he'd have written me a note and it was somewhere in the house.
Right.
And your mum and I searched and we couldn't find it.
And was this like soon after?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it was in the few days following his death.
Right.
Because I was convinced that there was a letter to me.
Right.
But
was there anything left or at all?
no,
In what he left?
because I think that he was in hospital at the time when he would have been writing, and I did ask them if there was anything. We went through all the things that came from the hospital, and there was nothing there.
Right.
So I don't know, but I think you can dwell on things, and sometimes that's not good for you.
No.
Your mental health again,
Yeah.
is it? I mean, life has. At the end of the day, life has to go on.
Yeah.
Much as you might not like it to go on like that, but it does go on, and there's nothing you can do. To prevent that, you've got to try and move on with your life, and that's what I was trying to do. I was trying very hard to do that before lockdown. To have booked a holiday,
being
to go on a holiday on my own. I was quite proud of the fact that I could, I wanted to do that. But then all that fell apart because of lockdown, so I never got that holiday on my own, and probably never will now. But it's lockdown will have in the future a lot of repercussions.
It's already having them now, isn't it?
And it might be young people, and I mean it affects everybody, right down to primary school age children, doesn't it? And you think about primary school age children who, like, I'm not seeing my granddaughter. I haven't seen my granddaughter since January, and you just think she will periodically say, "Oh, I wished I could hug you," because she, even at her age, she is missing the fact that she can actually come here. Or I can go there and she can hug me.
Yeah.
And so it's affecting every child from young to older people.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, we were talking about it being universal. That's exactly what I mean. It's weird.
I don't know whether I personally I think that lockdown will have a lot to answer for, but nothing can change it. It happened, didn't it? Yeah. To be honest, I do think, and this is the truth, I think I realised when I was coming out of the shielding, first of all on the 6th of July and then eventually on the 1st of August, that suddenly I made a list of things I'd like to do.
Right.
And top of my list was riding the classic car.
Really?
Yes.
And you've done that now?
And I did it on the 6th of July. I did it on the 6th of July, and I've done it since, a much longer ride. But that's you realise what you've missed in the lockdown, don't you? You've missed so much, really, and so I think we've got to move on and be quite positive about things. I think everybody has got to try and be positive now.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy.
No.
But you have to try. Yes. And that's my motto, I think.
You've got to
keep on trying.
Yeah. I think exactly, yeah. Even when, I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, just a terrible day. I had some fun and it all went to pot. And I was just like, oh, I should just stay in bed all day. That's like the mood I was in. I was like, but I'm so glad I haven't, because obviously I've come out, recorded the podcast. Earlier on today, I recorded a song.
Did you?
Yeah, genuinely. I wrote it, got my ukulele out.
How can you? Oh, right, you can play a ukulele.
Play is a bit broad term, Nan, but I obviously don't have a guitar, but I thought, I don't know, I just was quite, I'm quite a creative person, I'd like to think, and I'm always anxious to be doing something, so I did that. I was like, oh, okay. So, there's always a reason to get out of bed and do
But
them.
staying in bed when you wake up, because I've had many a morning in the last nearly 5 months when I could easily have done that and never wanted to get up again. But you lay there and you think, this isn't the way to continue your life, is it?
No.
How's that going to help anybody at all?
And you're just going to look back on it and go, why was I wasting my bloody time?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
if you know that, then you're going to think, well, you know.
I don't think you have wasted your time in lockdown.
I don't think I have, compared to some other people. Maybe I've not done as much as other people, but I feel like I've done quite a bit. You know, I've made films, I've started this podcast.
Yeah.
You know.
So what other
written a
sorts
lot
of
of
things
stuff.
what might people have done then in lockdown?
I don't know, just done that, but a bit more.
Oh.
Maybe they've made 4 films.
Yeah.
That always plays in my head. I've not done enough.
You can't even say you would go and help a charity, can you? Because the charities weren't open.
But then this is a sort of a charity podcast, so
Yes.
I suppose I've got myself covered on that front.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. As well, I know I said it was going to end, but I did want to just talk about something that was sort of playing in my head, and I thought since we're talking about it, I might as well talk about it. So not getting up in the morning, not wanting to get up. So for some reason, more than ever this year, I've had like thoughts about just not. I don't think I want to not be alive, but I just don't want to be in the situation what I'm in right now. I'm unhappy with the situation I'm in right now because I'm constantly. I'm more of a perfectionist than anything, so I'm like, I just want to. The situation that I'm in could be. I think I could improve it so much. There's so much. I could be in much more of a better situation. Like I could have passed my test.
Yeah.
That was troubling this morning. I was like, I could have passed my test, but obviously because of coronavirus and stuff like that, it's been really an issue.
Yeah.
I've been struggling. I'm going to struggle probably getting a test before thing. But that bothers me. I'm like, I'm not where I want to be. There's certain things where I'm not where I want to be, and it bothers me. And I'm like, what's the best solution? It's like just kind of go away. But I don't know. Like
it will get sorted. It will get sorted, and if you have to wait until you come back at Christmas, it doesn't matter, does it?
No, it's just I find it difficult being unhappy in what situation I am, which is I think normal, but
I think a lot of teenagers and young adults probably feel like that.
I don't think it's helped by social media and seeing everybody else and what they're doing.
But social media, you're probably going to do a podcast on this.
It's coming up. Probably,
yeah. And to be honest, you just have to stop and think, all these wonderful things that everybody's doing,
yeah,
are they real?
Yeah, no, I know they're probably not.
Because some people put their whole lives on there.
Yeah.
Well, they say it's their lives, but I don't think it is.
No.
I honestly don't. So if you can put that in your head and think, well, that's not real. They want you to think that this is their happy life.
Yeah, it's not though.
And they might be actually a lot more depressed than you are. They're trying to make out that they're not, but they are.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, it is.
It's something I want to get into as well. Social media is a very big topic, very broad topic as well.
I'm not sure that social media is the greatest thing since sliced bread. To be honest,
it's not.
It? And yet I still go on Facebook, and it annoys me.
Yeah, no, it's a landmine basically. You're either going to get loads of good stuff or something that really annoys you.
And if you do put a comment onto somebody's post, sometimes you get some really nasty responses.
Depends who you're putting the post on and what the comment is.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, no, I agree.
Especially when it's very political, isn't it?
I try to kind of keep politics off social media.
I think that's the answer, really.
Yeah, It's I know a lot of people like to do it because it's a good way of promoting a message, social media, but at the same time it's like it's a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, and I mean it's like all the people at the moment who are going abroad, and that worries me because I really, really do not. Having been isolated for 4.5 months, I don't want anybody bringing me any kind of infection here.
Yeah, I know. I think there's been a lot of people being selfish, but I think we're getting a bit off topic.
Yes, we are.
We are getting a bit. It's all right. No, it's all right to have a bit of a waffle near the end of the podcast. But yeah, that's sort of a preview actually into an upcoming topic we're doing. I don't know what next week's topic is going to be yet, so I could say it's social media and do a nice link, but I don't know if it is going to be that yet.
Oh, right.
Because this is the most latest one I've done. Obviously, well, that's how it works. But anyway, social media is definitely a topic I'll get into. It's very meaty subject and something I definitely want to get into. We're on episode 8 by now, which is mental. Do you know what I mean? It seems like only a week ago I was doing the first one with Gabe and talking about toxic masculinity, but it's weird now. We're on episode 8. Did
you find it difficult to do an hour of the first one? Or did it just flow?
Yeah, I think it was just. I think it was like 50 minutes. The first one, it wasn't just an hour. It was weird. I got a few tips from somebody that does interview it anyway. My friend. I don't want to name him because he doesn't want to be named. He does a lot of interviews. Does a lot of work for like people like Enemy and stuff like that. And I got a few tips from him. Just saying, I might as well reveal some of his secrets since there's no harm in it. Basically, just making the guests feel as comfortable as possible, and then also letting them speak as much as possible as well. So if you actually leave gaps, people will speak. And I suppose actually that's something that you can apply to talk. So when you're talking to someone just generally about mental health, you can do that. Sort of if you you ask someone a question and you don't just butt in all the time, they're probably going to likely to come out with more, and that's going to help them more. So maybe that's a tip that you can take forward into talking to people, because if it works for interviews, it's probably going to work for.
Yes, if you leave a space.
Yeah, because people actually want to fill the space, and when they fill the space, they usually say more.
Yeah.
So that's a nice way to end it. I think just giving like a little top tip.
Yes, top space.
But yeah, it's been really nice talking to you, Nan. I'm sure I'll have you on another point in the future, hopefully, if you want to do another one.
Depends what this one turns out.
But yeah, it's been lovely chatting, and as I say, I don't know what next week's topic is going to be. But yeah, if you guys could, if you're still listening right now, share the word or spread the word. It really, really, really does help. I've been able to reach people that obviously I don't even know, which is something that I kind of always wanted to do. If I could get to a point where people that I don't even know are listening, then that's sort of what I wanted. So I could get that sort of reach and help that many people. And yeah, we can help even more if you guys do that. And the only reason that other people I don't even know are listening is because people are sharing it, and it is working, obviously, because I'm getting these messages and stuff like that from people I don't know. So it's definitely working. So yeah, if you guys could just do that, I really appreciate it. And yeah, it would mean a lot. But yeah, you don't have to do it. I don't feel inclined to do it. But yeah, thank you for listening, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Do you have anything to plug now?
Can't think of anything. No.
You want to plug?
No. I think I've done my little plugs.
Oh, right. Anyway, thank you for listening, and yeah, hopefully I will see you in the next one. Till then, take care and get talking. Thank you. Bye bye.